All right, so we have our basic sketch pulled up, just a brand new sketch, and we're gonna plug in our board, and we're gonna end up selecting this board and doing some basic work with this. So take your USB, plug it in, and there we go. We have the board with the on light, and then we have the little LED here shining as well. So we're going to go ahead and write some basic code. So first, when you start up the sketch, you have this first boilerplate or whatever you want to call it with the void setup and the void loop. With this said, I typically start out by putting a title in here. I'm going to call this blank. And you can always just put your date in of today's date is 9. Whoa. Skipping around here. 9. Oh, I don't have number lock on. That would make sense. Okay, so we have 9, 23, 25. And then we can we can hit enter again here. And we can put another line of notes. And in this, we can put what we're going to do. Another trick here is control, what is it, this? Yep, control this. Maybe I got that wrong. There we go. Now I can, in this whole entire selected area, I can just put comments. And so what I can do is in LED code. And so pin 13 is the pin we are using with the built-in. All right, so we're essentially going to just put some basic code here with the comments. I like to just put the title, date, and notes about what we're doing here. So that's just a basic setup. I'm going to hit File, Save As. I'm going to call this Test Blank. Save it. And I had in my preferences, I have autosave. So now everything I do forward is going to autosave. What do I have here? So moving on from there, we have our basic comments kind of telling us what we're doing here today. So first thing we're going to start with here is kind of what these things are. Void setup. This is where your setup code goes here. It says setup code here runs once. This only runs once. So we want to set up like serials here. We want to set up basic pinouts, kind of all that. And then down here in the void loop, we have our main code here. And this repeatedly just loops and just keeps going and keeps going the whole entire time. There's power to the board, right? So this is where our main code goes. And so to start with, we're going to actually manipulate this little LED. We're not going to plug anything in. We're just going to manipulate this little LED on board. And with this, we have all of these digital pins here, these analog pins and power. But if we manipulate this little board LED, it actually uses pin 13. So we can't do anything with pin 13 while we're manipulating this. And so to pull that up, we want to start with telling the pins in which we want to work with, what they are and what they're doing. So I usually hit tab, or tab and kind of start there so we can kind of indent. And what we want to do is keep, if we're writing inside this void setup, we don't have to put anything inside this bracket because that's just a setup. It's just blank. There's no prompt to it. But we want to keep our code inside these two curly brackets, as you can see here. So we have these two curly brackets here, and we want to keep our code inside that. And the same thing goes for this. And when we code inside this loop, we want to keep them inside this curly bracket. So I'm going to start right here, and I'm going to start out with pin mode. And this is an uppercase sensitive coding language. And so obviously pin lowercase with an uppercase M for mode. All together, all is one. And what's this prompting us for is it says pin mode. We want to tell it what pin to use and what mode we want to put that pin as. Input, output, are pretty much the two that we're going to work with. So what this also tells us is it returns a void, but we really don't need to care about that. So what we're going to do here is, I think it's LED, and it already auto prompts us because we have that selected, and we can say LED under dash or underscore built in. And then we can hit comma and tell it what this pin is. And we're going to set it as an output tab. So we have it pin mode right there. We have pin LED built in and output. So input and output. We're telling it what it is. Ones and zeros. So if I write in, if I say copy this just as an example, and I say input instead of output, this is a 0. But it really doesn't matter in this case because we're just setting pins. It'll matter when you go to on or off or high or low for that ones and zeros. But in this case, it's just declaring that as an output. So we say pin mode, LED built in, what pin we're working with, right? And then output. And then to close that, we want to go like this and hit it with a semicolon. So that closes that line out. So that function's done. We have the pin mode. We established what pin we're messing with and what that pin is doing, input or output, right? So essentially that's done. And now we can move on to what we're going to actually do to this pin. And that's going to be down here in our main code. In our main code, we're going to want to write some code for this. And so to start with that, this is a digital pin. We're messing with pin 13 on this board. As you can see, if we highlight this, I think it'll bring it up. Yeah, see, LED pin 13. So it's defined as, this is defined as pin 13. So we're just bringing that in, right? And so we're messing with pin 13. And so what we want to do is, it's a digital pin and we want to write to it because it's an output. We're writing to the pin itself. So we're going to say digital write, right? And so that's an uppercase sensitive thing. As you can see, it's prompting us digital write with a pin and a value that we're setting to that pin. And that pin's going to be LED built in, the pin that we already established as an output. And then we want to put it to a value. And so we can put this to a value of high, uppercase high, right? And what that's going to do is it's writing as 1 to it, or on or off, or binary ones and zeros. So it's writing on, right? And so it's writing 13, it's saying on, 13 on. Now what we're going to do is we're going to say, well, we want it to be on for a certain amount of time. We can say delay. And as you can see, it says delay. It's an orange, right? And then it says some type of unassigned long millisecond. So 1,000 milliseconds here, make sure we close it with a semicolon, is equal to, so this is equal to comment. So we can comment here and say 1,000 milliseconds is 1.0 seconds, right? And so it's the same thing as if I were to put 500 there, milliseconds. That would be, that is 0.5 seconds, right? So, and then that's kind of our basics. So milliseconds right there. So now what's this telling me is digitally write to pin 13, turn it on, 1, high, binary, on, for 1,000 seconds, or 1,000 milliseconds, which is 1 second. And then we can digitally write to that pin again and say LED built in. And then we can say low. And what's that going to do is it's going to send it a 0. See, it sends it a 0. And so that says this is turning off, right? And this is turning on. And then we want to turn this off for some said amount of time. So we're going to say delay. And then we're going to send it, let's say 500 milliseconds. And then we're going to make sure we close that with a semicolon. Make sure you don't forget your semicolons. It's super easy to forget your semicolons. And so what this is going to do is turn on that LED, onboard LED, pin 13, for 1 second, and then turn it off for another half a second. Then it's going to run the code again. It's going to loop it again and say, turn on for a second, and then turn off for a second. And so what we can do now is we can kind of demonstrate that. I can show this board. I'm going to say up here and say to this upload button, I got to make sure my board's selected and say upload. And as we can see, it says it's compiling the sketch, and now it's uploading. And on our board, we can see some things happening. So now it's been uploaded. We can see that that thing's turning on and then turning off, turning on and then turning off. So that's our basic code. There's some basic coding language with our basic setup and how we can manipulate that little onboard LED. So that's your first sketch. And we'll go from there.